Well, right now at Master Arts Theater, we are putting on the play Things We Couldn't Say. And this is a play that Master Arts has already done a couple times, and it resonates strongly with audiences every time it has been done. And it definitely resonates strongly with today's guest on the show, my good friend Amy Hilldore. She's done the production multiple times, so I'm really glad to have her with me to discuss it today. So, welcome to the show, Amy.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So, this is kind of unique for my podcast in the sense that we're talking after the opening weekend. So, my first question to you is, are there tickets left for the show?
I think there are, but they're very limited, probably single seats, maybe some doubles out there. I should have looked at that before we talked, but I know that there's not very many left.
Just a few seats to enjoy this show over the next couple of weekends. So, make sure that you get your tickets. Maybe you might even want to push pause on this podcast, or you should be able to surf over to masterarts.org while you're listening to our conversation and grab whatever few tickets may be left. Again, for those who've never been to Master Arts, it's a very intimate venue. So if you want to grab tickets for a show, you really need to get on the ball and get those tickets as soon as possible to make sure you don't miss the wonderful shows that take place at Master Arts. So, with that introduction, I just wanted to give you a chance to kind of introduce yourself to people who may not know you
Okay.
and tell us a little bit about your overall theater experience.
Yeah.
How did you start getting involved in theater, and why is it so important to you today?
Honestly, it was mostly my mom that got me involved, and it's not that she was doing theater at all, but she introduced me to the children's shows at Grand Rapids Civic Theater many years ago. They would always fall around my birthday, so that was part of my birthday gift. And then I went to a school that was K through 8th grade. And when you got to 3rd grade, you could be in the plays. And so that was something that was a goal for me. And I was super shy, like very, very shy kid, which I'm sure Andrew can be like, really? Where? um, and theater kind of brought out the more outgoing, personable side of me. So I've been doing it for many years. I just turned 51. So if you can imagine from 3rd grade until now, it's been many years that I've gotten the opportunity to do it, and it's something that I just is a part of me, and so I am grateful to, Master Arts and directors for allowing me the opportunity, so
So, you've been involved in theater most of your life.
Mhm.
So, how did you come to be involved at Master Arts Theater specifically?
Yeah, it was back in high school, it was my junior year of high school, and, I I think it was, back when, like, in the newspaper, they used to put them. Like audition notices. And so I must have seen it in the paper or somewhere. I can't even remember where. Um, Noticed, this theater that was new to me, and it was quite new at the time. Master Arts in general. I saw the audition notice for Fiddler on the Roof, and I'm like, all right, well, I probably could. That's a large cast. Maybe I'll try to do that. And so I went, and it was a really fun experience because I had never auditioned for a community theater before, and so it was a little bit intimidating and really exciting, and, so I was cast in that, and I was one of, like, the youngest daughters, so a small part, but it was so fun to be a part of, and, so I did that back in '92. Took a break from theater, in college. I didn't do any theater in college, and then as adult, kind of, like, went back around to it and started doing it, and then fell in love with Master Arts all over again. I just love their mission and what they stand for, and it's just it's a welcoming place, like, people you can kind of find in community theater sometimes it's a little bit competitive, and it's just Master Arts is unique, it's very welcoming to everyone, and, it just feels like a place you wanna be, so
That's what I often say. From the very first time I came in the doors, I felt comfortable and at home. And I often relate it to the old Cheers theme song. Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name
Yeah.
and they're always glad you came. That's the
Yeah.
feeling that I get when I come to Master Arts. And so that's a really exciting thing. And for those who may not know, I met Amy at Master Arts and we've been
Yeah.
close friends for over 20 years. And
Yeah.
it's all thanks to theater. So I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah.
So, on this note of being grateful for Master Arts and its mission, it's
Mhm.
kind of exciting that we are wrapping up our 40th season of theater
Yeah.
as a theater with Master Arts. So, can you just kind of talk about? I mean, you kind of alluded to it already, but maybe a little bit more about why Master Arts in particular has resonated so strongly with you?
Yeah. I mean, the sense of community there is something I already touched on, but also is God driven. You know that you're going to be in a place where the focus is on God. Every rehearsal, every performance, everything, we pray before we do it. We really have the focus on God and doing and glorifying Him through the art of theater, and which is wonderful. If you've ever acted in theater, it can be kind of nerve-wracking, right? Like, you have all your nerves and it's like all this excitement, but you have this sense of calm because you know God is there. And we had an incident that happened on Saturday. One of the cast members kind of got lost of where they were, and after speaking with them afterwards, they were like, God was there and He guided me and He helped me through that. That's what it's all about. It's wonderful.
It is extremely wonderful. It's nice to know that when you're in a production, you're all on the same team. And like you said, you're united and galvanized in a way that you wouldn't necessarily be in another
Yeah.
theatrical environment where it's more competitive and
Yeah.
just about who can do it better. So that's a really exciting thing. We've already talked about the fact that Master Arts has done things we couldn't say a couple times already. So this is like the third time they've done it, at least since I've been involved with the
Yeah, it's
theater.
it's the 4th time actually, but there
So it's
was
the
one.
fourth time
Yeah,
overall.
yeah, there
So
was
how many
one
times
time.
have you done it?
Yeah, 2 times. This is my 2nd time, so there was one time before I was in it, and then trying to remember what year it was. It was 2007, I believe. I was in it as young Deet. I've aged out of that role. So, and then there was a time in between the 2007 and this one that they did it again. It's such an important story, so I'm glad it keeps coming back around. I joked and said that they need to do it again in another, 15 to 20 years so I can be older Deet. So I'm trying to do every role in the show as possible. But
And part of the reason that this show has been done so many times by Master Arts because Diet Eman actually spent some of her older years here in West Michigan,
yeah.
and she and our founder Pris McDonald developed a close friendship, and
Mhm.
so she was a frequenter of Master Arts when she could be, and she actually sat in the audience to watch her story unfold.
Yeah.
So I know that was a special time in the history of Master Arts, and it's an important story because it's a true story. And
Yeah.
I've often said throughout my ministry that one of the things we can't do is lose touch on actual history
Mhm.
because there are so many people walking around today that are ignorant of what actually happened in history. So the
Yeah.
ability for Master Arts to bring forth a true story from this tumultuous time in history, I think, is very important and never more relevant than today.
Yeah. Agreed.
So, as you're doing this for another go round, what are your thoughts as you open up this story again?
So the first time I was able to portray the younger Deet, so it's the show is basically like older Deet. I call her more experienced Deet, telling her story to a biographer. And so her story is kind of the play is kind of a flashback of all of her memories. And reading letters that her and her fiance Hein exchanged. And so that was the first time I did it. I was very immersed into that part of the story, and this time I was a little nervous to find out that I was cast as a German officer, and at first I was very intimidated by that thought, like, "Oh gosh, like, it's the bad guy," and now that we've had a weekend under our belt, it's like somebody came up to me and said, "Thank you for doing that. It's a story that needs to be told no matter if you're what side you were on, right? It's a story that needs to be told." So, it's just such an important show to tell, and so I was like, "I just want any part, that you could possibly give me," and so, thankfully, she trusted me with, the German officer, and you know, it's different, but it is part of her story, and so it needs to be told. Like you said, a lot of people don't even think about the past like that. Like, yes, we know about World War II. Yes, we know about the Holocaust, but um, not many stories talk specifically about the Dutch resistance and what they did. Like, Dee and her fiance Hein joined the Dutch resistance because their friend was a Jew and said, "What would you do?" Him and his family were being called up to go, and he's like, "What do I do?" And so they just felt compelled to go help. And did they have to? Absolutely not. They could have just gone on their merry way and done nothing, but they were convicted to be a helper, and it's just such a powerful story, and like I said, it needs to be told, so thankfully I'm a
Well,
part of it again.
and there are so many times when we look through the annals of history, when way that victory was won is people stood up and said, "We're not going to put up with this. We're going to fight against this evil."
Yeah.
And I wish I remembered the title of it right now, but a few months back, there was a movie by Angel Studios about a similar story, and actually about the youngest person to die for being a part of the resistance
Oh, wow.
and fighting against the Germans for the same reason, that he had a
Yeah.
friend who was no longer allowed to come to synagogue
Mm.
because the Jews were afraid of the Germans
Yeah.
and they didn't want to get on their bad side, so they would um block certain people from the synagogue. And this young man said this isn't right, so he started writing pamphlets on a typewriter, and he
Mm.
recruited two other people to help him distribute the pamphlets throughout the the town. And eventually he was arrested, and he became the youngest martyr for the resistance
Mm.
at just 17 years old.
Wow.
They actually said that if he had blamed one of his older compatriots, that he could have escaped with his life, but he refused to do so
Mhm.
because it was so important for him to speak the truth, even though it cost him his life.
Yeah.
And so, in a very similar way, Dee and her fiance suffered greatly,
Oh, for sure.
and without giving anything away, that's a big part of this story,
Yes.
is just realizing that the sacrifices ultimately were worth it because they stood up for what was right and they genuinely helped people.
Yeah.
Another person that comes to mind is Corey Ten Boom. She could have gone on her merry way, but she chose with her family to hide Jews
Yeah.
and to keep them safe from the Holocaust. So this was a very real time in history, and if we don't learn from the past, we could be in a situation where certain elements of it repeat. So it's
Yeah.
so important for us to know history and to learn it and to not be afraid to share it with others.
Right.
So, um, as you've gone through this rehearsal process, of course, you've done the show more than once, but what sticks out to you this time as you and the cast have been developing this show?
That's a hard question. What I love about this show, just from last time and this time, is it really like everyone comes ready to like really work and dive deep to make sure that you're portraying the story the way that you should, giving it the due justice that it should, because these were real people. There were, these are real emotions. So it's amazing how all of the actors are just very focused on doing a job well done, and they do. Like they've been wonderful. I mean, both times, but um, it's fun to work with, new people every time, and it's just I'm always so impressed with how people just really lock in and want to make sure that the story is told uh, with effectiveness, given the true story and putting the emotion and the grit and love into it.
So, is there anything specific that you would like to say as you brag on your cast and crew this time around?
They're just all wonderful. I think that it's you become a little family with the people that you're in a show with, and um, everyone does such a good job supporting each other. This script is written in a way that sometimes is um, hard for the actors to keep knowing where they're at, because there's a lot of dates, there's a lot of things that are happening, and they're all supporting each other uh, the way that they can to make sure that the story is told the way it needs to be told. I don't know, they're just all very seasoned actors, so it's been a nice experience to have this to watch the actors supporting each other, making sure that the show is done the greatest way possible. So
I know there's been certain shows that I've been involved in that because of the weight of the message of the show,
yeah,
it's emotionally draining,
yeah,
and so that's an added element that you don't often um see, because often we get together, we do a lighthearted theater
yeah,
experience, but this one is pretty heavy. And I know, like, for me, doing To Kill a Mockingbird and doing
mm,
Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, those were all very heavy themed shows, and so
yeah,
there's an emotionally draining element as
yeah,
well. So how do you navigate that, going into the theater, putting on your creative cap as this Nazi officer,
yeah,
this German officer, and then being able to come home and be Amy again? What's that
yeah.
like?
Uh, it's unique. It's a type of role that I've never done before. So it's those things that you blast your Christian music on the way home and and sing along to it, because you just have to have that release. We're very focused and serious, when we're on stage, but thankfully there's a lot of lighthearted, kind of joking around. Between the two shows on Saturday, we were, playing board games as a cast, and I think that those moments are the ones that kind of lift the heaviness feeling that you get from the story. I mean, our actors are having real tears on stage because the story is very emotional, it's very heavy, and they come off stage and they're in tears, and they're doing their job right when that happens. So but we like to have fun too.
That's great. So as we wrap up, I just want to ask you, in about 90 seconds, if someone was contemplating getting those last remaining tickets and coming to a performance either this weekend or next,
Yep.
but they weren't sure whether they were going to do it, what would you say to them about why they should?
Oh gosh, I think it's just the show is a good reminder, just for for loving people, for sometimes accepting people that that you may not agree with, right? That in this show, Dee says how she grew to hate the Germans. I mean, rightfully so, right? But then there's another part that later on that she walks into her hearing. Don't want to give too much away again, but she walks into her hearing and she sees the Germans, and all of a sudden God spoke to her, on her heart, and said, kind of like the the Bible verse of they know not what they do, right? They don't realize they're on the wrong side. And she said that the hate fell away and the pity for them came like, wow, I you don't even realize that you're on the wrong side. And so I think that, she found, I don't know if the acceptance is the right word, but she loved people even when they were wrong, right? Even when you disagree, even when you have those moments. It's such a show. It just brings your heart back to like truly loving one another, whether it's the Jews that they helped, or really taking that hate out of your heart, like Deet did, and feeling bad for the people who disagreed with her.
I'm actually reminded of Louis Zamperini, who was profiled in the movie Unbroken. He talked about being a POW
Mm,
during World War II in a Japanese internment camp, and how after he got rescued, his sole intent for many years was to go back to Japan and kill all the people that had tortured him during the war.
yeah,
But then he went to a Billy Graham crusade and had a life changing encounter with Jesus Christ. And then he went back to find his captors, but instead of going back to kill them, he went back to share Christ with them.
wow,
So it
that
was a
just gave me
whole
goosebumps.
180 change
Yeah,
of his attitude. He still wanted to go back, but he wanted to
yeah,
go back to share the peace of God with them. And so
right,
that's a pretty exciting thing. And it's kind of like that age old saying that says, if you fail to forgive, it's like drinking poison and
mm,
expecting the other person to die.
yeah,
If we hold on to resentment, no matter how bad the thing is that somebody did to us, we're actually doing more harm to us than we are
yeah.
to them.
Takes a strong
So,
person though, so thank goodness Deet was so strong. Like she was an amazing lady. I One last thing about her, she was one of those people that um after all that she went through, she just exuded joy. Like the joy that comes from really truly believing in God. She just exuded that. And to do the show and to see the show and know what all she went through, but then realizing how much joy she had in her life and she gave to others was just, it's like you want to, grow up and be her.
well, and even for her to be able to sit through that story
Yeah.
on multiple occasions and
Yeah.
see it again, and to have written the memoir that she did, because it is based on a book that she wrote,
Yeah.
is just amazing. And I remember also when we did Sound of Music and my brother played a Nazi, and
Mm,
she walked up to him after one of the performances and she's like, I hated you tonight. So that
yeah.
was kind of validation that he did a good job. But she lived it,
Yeah.
especially when you do
Really.
Sound of Music. There are somber parts of it, but there's
Hmm.
also fun parts of it. So you kind of lose some of the somberness of war.
Yeah.
But when you hear it from the perspective of someone like Dee who actually went through it, it really
Yeah.
puts a new perspective on things.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank Amy so much for being with me today on the Speaking for Him podcast. I hope that if you have enjoyed this episode, that you will share it with your family and friends. Maybe let 3 to 5 people who have not heard about Speaking for Him or Master Arts Theater know about this podcast episode so that they can avail themselves of Speaking for Him podcast on a weekly basis, and so that they can check out masterarts.org and consider being involved in a future production of the theater. A lot of exciting things have been going on there over the last couple of years, and I'm excited for what is still to come. And I really appreciate any and all feedback. So your comments, questions, and concerns can follow with the contact information that's about to roll at the end of the show. And with that being said, have a great week. And as always, keep serving the best of masters.